High upon these misty peaks, the ancient stones serve as the only true measure of a man's honesty and the weight of his lifelong legacy. In this rugged land, architecture is a constant battle against the elements, requiring a steady hand and a heart as firm as the bedrock beneath. Govind had spent 30 years carving his reputation into these mountains, but beneath the surface of his craftsmanship, a quiet greed began to take root. A wealthy merchant approached the old builder with one final request: to construct a masterpiece that would stand as a testament to their shared history. The instructions were simple yet grand. Build the finest house possible on the most beautiful plot of land, with no limit on the budget provided. As a gesture of deep gratitude for 3 decades of faithful service, the merchant handed over a fortune to fund this final, glorious retirement project. Govind accepted the gold and the challenge, but his mind was already wandering away from the path of integrity he had followed for so long. The merchant trusted his friend completely, believing that his final masterpiece would be built with the same love and care as every project before it. This was the beginning of the end, a moment where a lifetime of honor would be weighed against the sudden lure of an easy, dishonest fortune. Inside the shadows of his workshop, Govind sat alone, and the flickering light of the lamp revealing the cold, calculating thoughts dancing behind his weary eyes. The temptation was overwhelming. He realized that if he saved on materials, the leftover gold would ensure a life of luxury he had never known. With a few strokes of his pen, the master builder began to dismantle his own honor, trading high-quality stone for cheap, brittle substitutes and filler. He convinced himself that no one would ever know, that the outer shell would look so perfect that the rotten core would remain forever hidden. Under the cover of darkness, the first shipments of inferior materials arrived, hidden from the eyes of the townspeople and the unsuspecting, generous merchant. The wood was weak and the stone was porous, but Govind only saw the gold coins he was saving with every compromise he made today. Honesty was being replaced by deception, that as the foundation of the house was laid upon a bed of lies and greed instead of solid rock. Each coin he hid was a brick in the wall of his own eventual downfall, yet he felt only the thrill of his growing secret wealth. The structure grew quickly, fueled by haste and the desire to finish before anyone could inspect the quality of the work hidden behind the walls. Every bucket of weak concrete was a gamble against time and nature, at a risk Govind was more than willing to take for his personal gain. The mountains seemed to groan in protest, sensing the betrayal of the earth as this hollow monument to greed began to take its final shape. He was no longer a builder of homes, but a weaver of illusions, crafting a beautiful mask to hide a crumbling and dangerous structural reality. The cracks were beginning to show even before the roof was on, but a thick layer of plaster and lies kept the truth safely hidden. Appearance became everything. The focus shifted from strength to shine, from durability to the deceptive glow of fake gold and polished hollow wood. He used every trick in the book to make the cheap materials look like the finest imports, laughing silently at how easily people are deceived. The roof was designed to impress the eye, but it was never meant to withstand the heavy snows and fierce winds of the high plateau. He knew the walls were empty and the beams were brittle, but he convinced himself it wouldn't be his problem once the job was done. Every nail driven in was a silent witness to his crime, a weak link in a chain that was destined to break under pressure. When his workers questioned the safety, Govind silenced them with threats or bribes, ensuring the conspiracy of silence remained unbroken until the end. From afar, it was a palace fit for a king, a masterpiece of design that would surely earn Govind the highest praise in the land. The light hid the flaws, making the thin veneers and fake finishes sparkle with a borrowed beauty that was never meant to last very long. Even the smallest details were handled with the same deceptive intent, smoothing over the rough edges of his betrayal with oil and paint. Comfort was simulated, luxury was faked, and the entire house was becoming a physical manifestation of Govind's own hollow and corrupted spirit. He felt invincible, believing he had successfully cheated both the man who trusted him and the very laws of physics that govern the world. As the builders departed, they left behind a shell of a home, a beautiful corpse of a building, waiting for the wind to blow. The final evening arrived and the house glowed like a jewel on the hillside, ready to be presented to the man who paid for it. The work was finished, the lies were sealed within the walls, and Govind prepared himself for the final act of his grand, deceptive play. He practiced his smile in the glass, and a mask of humility designed to hide the pride and the greed that now defined his very existence. The benefactor was coming to witness the result of his generosity, unaware that he was about to walk into a trap of architectural deceit. With a heart full of joy, the merchant marveled at the beauty before him, thanking the heavens for such a talented and loyal friend as Govind. Govind played his part perfectly, welcoming the master to the house that was built on a foundation of stolen gold and hidden rotting timber. Every step the merchant took made Govind's heart race, fearing that a floorboard might snap or a ceiling might sag under the weight of truth. The merchant praised the craftsmanship, his words of appreciation cutting through Govind like a sharp blade, though the builder dared not show it. It was a moment of peak irony, where the victim of the crime was celebrating the very criminal who had just betrayed his deepest trust. The weather was changing, a silent warning from nature that the illusions of man are no match for the raw power of the mountain winds. The rich man spoke of their years of friendship, of the trust that had never wavered, and the debt of gratitude he felt he owed. He wanted his money and he wanted to leave, but the merchant was not yet finished with his final shocking surprise for the old man. This key represented more than just a house, and it was the symbol of a lifelong bond and a reward for a career built on supposed integrity. He expected to be handed a final payment, but the merchant's next words would change the course of his life in a single, terrifying heartbeat. The ultimate reward was revealed. The house Govind had sabotaged for profit was now the very roof he was destined to live under. The world seemed to stop spinning. The gold he had stolen was now the price of his own safety in a house made of glass. With a final blessing, the benefactor departed, leaving the master of deception to face the reality of the trap he had so carefully built. The silver key felt like a lead weight, a sentence of imprisonment in a beautiful prison of his own making, filled with his own sins. The storm had arrived, and there was no one left to help him, no one to blame, and nowhere else for the old builder to go. He was now the owner of his own deceit, the king of a hollow empire that was about to be tested by the fury of nature. The silence was broken only by the low rumble of thunder, as the builder waited for the first sign of the inevitable collapse of his work. The roof he had skimped on began to fail almost immediately, the rain finding every path through the cheap shingles and thin, brittle boards. The mask was melting away, as the water washed off the expensive-looking finishes to expose the ugly, weak truth of the structure's inner core. A fear finally took hold of Govind's heart as he realized that the very beams he had swapped for profit were now threatening his life. He was trapped in the belly of the beast, a victim of his own engineering, forced to witness the slow destruction of his final project. Every groan of the timber was a scream of his conscience, reminding him that a house built on lies cannot withstand the weight of truth. What use was the gold if it was to be buried with him in the wreckage of his own greed and his own terrible, selfish decisions? The earth itself seemed to be swallowing the house, rejecting the dishonesty that had been forced upon it by the hands of a fallen master. The collapse had begun, a slow and agonizing deconstruction of everything he had tried to hide from the world through his clever, deceitful schemes. To the outside world, it was just a house falling, but to Govind, it was the total disintegration of his soul and his entire legacy. He tried to save the house he once hated, but it was far too late to fix the damage he had done to the structure's heart. The gift had become a curse, the key a shackle, and the home a tomb for a man who forgot the value of his own word. There is no heavier burden than the consequences of one's own actions when they finally come back to claim what they are owed by fate. In the end, the mountain only keeps what is real, and the wind blows away everything that was built on nothing but thin air. When the storm cleared, only the truth remained, scattered across the hillside as a silent warning to any who would choose profit over their honor. Nature has no patience for lies, and the mountains only respect that which is built with the same endurance and honesty as the ancient bedrock. Karma is the mirror that reflects our true selves. What we give to the world will always find its way back to our own front door. The world is a reflection of our integrity. Every small act of honesty or deception is a brick in the house of our own future. Build your life with the truth, for you never know when you might be asked to live in the very house you have created for others. Let your actions be your legacy, and let your honesty be the shelter that protects you when the storms of life eventually come to call. Never deceive yourself, for the universe is watching, and the house of your life is built one decision and one stone at a time.